Thank you for joining me today for some virtual vitamin C as we bring the Detroit Zoo to you. My name is Claire. I'm a curator of education with the Detroit Zoological Society where we are celebrating and saving wildlife. And today we're going to talk about two animals who used to live at the Detroit Zoo but have since gone elsewhere and why that decision was made. So to do that, we have a little bit of vocabulary that we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about what animal welfare means, and we're going to talk about what it means, what a sanctuary is. All right. So you may notice that I am standing at a familiar location if you're familiar with the Detroit Zoo. And I am out at where the elephant habitat used to be. There are two white rhinos that live in this space now. So the space is still there. It's just inhabited by two different species. So let's start the story of Wanda and Winky and tell you how they came to the Detroit Zoo and where they live now. Okay, so let's start here in Detroit. I'm going to start right up here. Winky was born in Cambodia. So we're going to fly around the globe here right down to Cambodia. And in 1952, she was born, and she was captured in the wild and sold to a zoo. Now, this is something that used to happen a bit in zoos 50, 60, 70 years ago. People would buy animals. The zoos would either go out and capture or buy animals and bring them to the zoo so people could see them. This is not the practice of a modern day zoo. There are times when animals will be taken from the wild, but it's because they can't survive there anymore on their own. For example, the three grizzly brothers who live in our care, they were orphaned and they were too young to survive on their own, so they were brought to the Detroit Zoo to live in our care. Also with the eagles, both of them sustained wing injuries and were not able to survive in the wild on their own, so they came to the Detroit Zoo. So those are instances in a modern day zoo era as to why an animal might be taken out of the wild and brought into human care. There's also the topic of conservation. Sometimes if an animal is endangered or close to becoming extinct, humans will go out, conservationists will go out, collect some of the animal species that are left and bring them into human care. And this is what we call an assurance population. We want to ensure that this species doesn't go extinct. So we'll provide care for this species until it's possible to reintroduce them back into their native habitat. But the way that Wanda and Winky came out of their native habitat is not something that's currently practiced by zoos. So we talked about Winky, let's talk about Wanda. Let's start back up here at Detroit again. And this time we're going to travel over to India, where she was also captured as a young elephant and sold to a circus. And that's how she started her life. All right, and I have a couple pictures for you. So let's get that started, shall we? Let me share my screen with you. So back when I first started at the Detroit Zoo, I was a seasonal staff member. And I had the opportunity to meet Wanda and Winky back in probably 2003 or 2004. And it was an incredible experience. They were majestic animals, both very large. And while we were standing back in a protected area, we were communicating with each other. And that communication was incredible. It was this deep rumble that you couldn't really hear with your ears, but you could feel it inside your body. And it's an experience that I will forever, ever remember and hold very dear to me that I had the opportunity to meet Wanda and Winky and have that opportunity. So Wanda and Winky came to the zoo in 1994. And they lived in our care here for about 10 years. And during this time, we were constantly considering their well-being. Was the space large enough? Did they have enough room to move around? Elephants are very social. Were their social dynamics enough for them? Was two enough to have a herd, a social group? So we didn't want them to just survive. We had provided them respite from a life of traveling between different locations and circus performances, but were they really thriving? So the space behind me, you can see, I also recorded some of it yesterday so you could see a little more closely how large the space is. And during the summer months, they had quite a bit of space to move around and explore, and we would put lots of different things out into the habitat. You can see that big structure right behind me. That's that umbrella there that they could use for shade. And this is from the east end. And the habitat actually stretches a little bit further down as well. So let me show you what the other side of the habitat also looks like. In the wild, elephants will travel for many, many miles in a day. They'll do a lot of walking. So while the elephants could move around in this space and do a couple miles of walking during the summer months, we are constantly, again, thinking about what else could we be doing for Wanda and Winky? And here's a few white rhinos that actually live in this space now. I just took this video yesterday so you could see the entire habitat space that was available to them. Now, during the winter months here in Detroit, it gets pretty chilly, and elephants are not adapted to live in cold environments. So there is the indoor building, and I took a quick picture in case folks aren't familiar with the indoor space. And again, it's quite large, especially by human standards. And there are several different spaces for the elephants to move between the different rooms so they could spend time together or separately. But the winter months here in Detroit are long, and the elephants had arthritis. They were both older, and we wanted to make sure that we were providing the absolute best care. So this is the indoor rhino building, which you can have access to during the winter months to visit them. So we started having some really tough conversations, and ultimately we made the decision to transfer Wanda and Minky to a sanctuary in California. And we've been working with the Performing Animal Welfare Society in this whole transfer and talking about them as the resources they could provide and the lives that they could provide for Wanda and Winky. And we made the decision that they should go and live in California at the sanctuary. So to do this, the elephants had to practice. And for weeks, they practiced getting on and off of the semi-trailer with gummy treats and things to entice them to get on and then back off. And after we felt that they were completely ready, on April 5th, 2005, they loaded up onto the trailer for the last time. The door closed behind them, and they started their adventure. This semi-trailer was really cool. It was climate controlled. It had special padded flooring, and it had a bunch of cameras so the zookeepers who were riding up in the cab could look in on them whenever they wanted to. And it took 2,300 miles and 70 hours, which is just under 3 days, for Wanda and Winky to arrive out in California at the sanctuary. So the sanctuary out there, the space for the Asian elephants, is about 30 acres. It has rolling hills, vegetation, and there was an established herd there. So if Wanda and Winky wanted to, they could join that herd and have that social dynamic. They could browse, which means find things to eat. They could graze, dig, swim, and just explore. And that physical exercise, we know, helps a lot with animals that have arthritis. So we were really excited to be able to have them have this opportunity to live in this incredible 30-acre space. So Winky was a little bit shy at first and spent a lot of time near the barn. And the animal care team there took incredible care of her, giving her lots of treats. So maybe that's why she hung out closer to the barn. But Wanda joined the other elephants in the herd and spent a lot of time exploring the habitat. In 2007, about 2 years after she got there, she met an elephant named Gypsy. And the two seemed to really hit it off, and they ended up spending a lot of time together from that time on. So Winky actually passed away at the age of 56, about 3 years after she moved to Paws. Wanda passed away in 2015 at the age of 57, and she lived at Paws for 10 years at that point. We are incredibly grateful to have this working relationship with Paws and have had the opportunity for them to take such excellent care of the elephants once they retired, if you will, out to their sanctuary. So zoos have a really important role in being transparent about the decisions that we make, especially for the care of individual animals. It's more about that individual animal than it is anything else. We want to make sure that they are thriving, not just surviving. And sometimes it makes that tough decision of maybe we can't provide the space that these animals really deserve and need, but let's find the resources that we can connect those animals with the spaces that they do. So the next time you visit the Detroit Zoo, as you walk by the now rhino habitat, you can fondly remember Wanda and Winky who lived here, and know that they retired out in a rolling pasture out in California, and with beautiful weather and tons of things to eat, and excellent care. So to honor elephants, I have an activity for you today, and I'm going to have to post up the instructions for you after I go through right here, because you're going to need a couple things. You're going to need the graph paper that I provide to you, and you're going to need a pen or pencil. All right. So I'm going to post this graph paper in our activities section, and you can see this big blue dot up there, and you might be wondering, well, why is there a random dot in the middle of that graph paper? Well, I'm also going to post a series of instructions, and those instructions are going to help you draw a picture of an elephant using the graph paper. So what does that mean? Well, here's the instructions. You see it says 4 up here, and then there's an arrow that points to the right. So you're going to go back to that graph paper. You're going to start up here at over 4 spaces. And then you're going to leave your pencil right there and then look at your next set of directions. So the next set of directions says you're going to go down at an angle 2 spaces. So we went over 4, and now we're going to go down 2. And we're going to continue following all of these directions on a separate sheet until you've drawn the picture of an elephant. So this is a really fun way to practice a whole bunch of different skills that are really important for especially our elementary age learners. You're going to practice graphing. You're going to be practicing following directions. You're going to be practicing counting, so you can even help a very young learner recognize those numbers and count over how many squares. And you'll also be familiarizing them with the concept of graphing at the same time. And you're also going to be thinking about distance, how far each of those distances go. And if you don't follow those directions, your elephant's going to come out looking a little wonky. So it's really important that you follow those step-by-step directions. All right. So thank you for joining me today as we learned a little bit more about Wanda and Winky, the 2 Asian elephants who used to live in our care at the Detroit Zoo, that we made the ultimate decision that they would thrive if we moved them out to California to a sanctuary. So that is the decision that we made back in 2005. It is kind of crazy to think that that's been 15 years now. And again, I'm so thankful to have had the opportunity to meet Wanda and Winky, and I'm even more thankful for the opportunity that they had to live out the end of their lives at such an incredible place as the Paw Sanctuary. So thanks for joining me today. If you're looking for some more virtual vitamin Z, visit our website, DetroitZoo.org. We have cameras that go into habitats, live cameras that go into animal habitats available for you. And we also have a variety of different activities listed up there for you to access. So thanks for joining me today, and until next time,